Hello, travel trailer friends. Today I thought we'd do something a little interesting. No, it's not putting the new suspension on the trailer or anything like that or a modification. It's to talk through kind of a real world punch list comparison between the Grand Design and the Alliance Delta. When you're shopping for a travel trailer, most of the time you're more interested in floor plans and features and your first impressions, but really what matters is what happens after you make the purchase as far as a punch list goes, and those are the issues that show up during your warranty period. So, well, they may show up after your warranty period if you're very unfortunate. So having owned both the Grand Design Imagine 2950RL and now the Alliance Delta 294RK, I've had an opportunity so far to compare these two travel trailer punch lists, and let's face it, that's where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. That's the real world situation, actually using the trailers. So let's look at the punch list that I have for Grand Design. And remember now, this is back in 2017, and we will compare it to the punch list I had with Alliance, so let's break it down. And that picture up there is the 2950RL Imagine, actually the very first day of ownership, and as most of you know, I absolutely did love that trailer. All right, so here's the list from the Grand Design punch list, let's say during the entire warranty period. First of all, the very first day we had it, there was a leveling jack failure, which they rushed right over to us and fixed. We were right at the campground next to the dealership. Then on top of that, there were some decal issues. The entrance door was sticking, causing it to actually wear the paint in one of the upper corners. The screen door was misaligned with the entrance door so that you could not hook the screen door to the entrance door, which you know that's a big thing. And then the deadbolt would only engage about half of the way. And so anyway, I've talked about this in previous videos, so I won't go into a lot of detail, but the dealership did not want to even handle that. They said they would make it worse, and I had a very competent RV repair place up in Indiana do the repair in a matter of minutes. So anyway, that's just kind of an aside. So let's keep going. There was a kitchen cabinet that needed to be aligned. One of the exterior storage doors was binding. There was, and I know people that have Imagines know that on some of the slides there's a foam gasket down in the corner, and if it's missing you can see through to the ground, and that was definitely missing on mine. Then we had a broken off screw on one of the slides, and it looked like someone had tried to put another screw in next to an additional screw, and they did it on an angle and really boogered it up. But that whole thing ended up being part of a more large recall a few months down the road where they had to replace all the exterior screws. So anyway, that was all, obviously all of this stuff that I'm telling you was all fixed under warranty, but that was kind of a major failure. There was a slide wipe seal underneath one of the slide rims that was really twisted and warped. There was a cosmetic issue on the front cap where it was very dull, but they took care of that. The drip rails were really misaligned where they were actually out a little bit too far from the side rail, so that ended up having to be taken care of. Most of you who have watched some of the earlier videos know that when on our first big outing, we ended up having a rainstorm, and neither of the two air conditioner gaskets had ever been tightened down. So I had some water intrusion there, took care of it. There was a major electrical short in the trailer, and that knocked out a series of outlets. I mean, a large series of outlets. And that was all because it had not been tailed out correctly behind the recliner. Someone left a really long ground on there and wound it around, and it was shorting out. We had a ceiling, you know, the ceilings are that white board with a covering on it, and the covering was actually bubbling out at one point. And so actually I ended up taking care of that myself. Grand Design was willing to replace that whole ceiling panel, but it would have really, since it was up against the wall that heads into the bathroom, it would have really, I think, been noticeable and ugly. I ended up using a syringe basically and squirting glue in there and then pressing it tight and got rid of it. So, and then if you've watched Trilogy of Terror, that series on the channel, you know that we had like a roof fiasco that went on that was pretty major. But anyway, that's pretty much it. So the Imagine had a really long and varied punch list. I would say that the main structural concern was the roof, and by structural I mean, you know, the panels were coming up, the wood panels were coming up underneath the roof eventually, and that got resolved. We had the electrical issue, and then there were just the minor fit and finish and hardware failures, and those to me they all represented just really a lack of quality control during manufacturing. So let's go on and talk about the Alliance. And to be fair, right now I still have about 8 months left on my warranty, somewhere in there, maybe not quite that long, 7 months. So this won't be quite apples to apples, but let's go through it. And there's the picture of our Alliance Delta next to the Grand Design at the dealership. Okay, I want to prep you really quick. This is a short list with the Delta, and like I said, to be fair, we're only 4 months into the burn basically on the warranty, but we had a much larger list at this point with the Grand Design. But let's go through it. The exact slide had a frayed cable on the lower right side. That was replaced. Dump handles I found to be very hard to pull, and I realize I'm not a 20-year-old anymore, but I've never had a problem pulling dump handles in the past. The interior slide trim, the fascia board that goes around the couch area, when I was trying to take off their parade of stickers throughout the trailer, it actually removed some of that fake wood grain paper, and again, they took care of that. They did a nice job on it. We had the backsplash in the rear wall that was bubbled out a little bit, like it didn't have enough glue on it when it was applied. The outdoor satellite connection, which you've heard me complain about a couple times, where whoever installed the cable made a mistake and cut the connection going to the outdoor TV, and then instead of like fixing it, they just wrapped it up in some tape around another bundle of cables and let it ride. We had a toilet gasket leak, which wasn't a big deal. It just needed, a new gasket. It was a very minor leak. We could see a little antifreeze around the base of the toilet. As far as the roof goes, it's not an exceptional roof. And you've heard me say before that I think Jayco makes probably the best roof, or at least they did back when we had the Jayco Whitehawks. Very residential roof. This roof, even though it's PVC and supposed to be stronger, I'm not impressed with it. But it may be typical. I mean, a lot of this stuff is kind of typical for the industry, and that's not a compliment. And then the only other thing we had were a few, of those stickers on the outside that were, wrinkled or misaligned, and that was all taken care of. So to be really fair, the Imagine list goes through the whole warranty period, while the Delta is still kind of early in the burn. But even at this stage, I would say the severity and the frequency is noticeable. So what are the takeaways? Okay, so the Delta issues are really more limited in scope and severity, and so far kind of fall into a couple categories like minor fit and finish, component usability, which I could use the dump handles, but it was difficult. Some isolated, hardware issues and satellite coax line being severed, which, you could say, well, yeah, and the Imagine had the shorting outlet, but there's really no comparison there. Having the satellite cable cut and then wrapped up really didn't cause us to lose outlets or anything like that, or really, I wasn't really worried about any sort of an electrical fire or anything like that, because it was basically a dead line. It wasn't even connected at the panel. So on the side-by-side comparison, the Imagine had a pretty extensive list across multiple systems, and the Delta had a shorter, more focused list. So the advantage right now, and I'm saying right now, is the Delta. And just from a factory standpoint, I would say that the Imagine had, a major electrical short. It had a slide recall. There were some serious things that went on with trailers before that whole slide screw issue was fixed. And, AC gaskets that aren't tightened right out of the gate, that raises a lot of manufacturing red flags. On the Delta, the roof's not great. Talked about that. The satellite coax being severed and then hidden in the bundle really raises some quality control or supervisory concerns. I would give the slight advantage to the Delta under that kind of category as far as factory building concerns. As far as the fit and finish goes, Imagine had the door alignment issues, not only the front door, but the compartment door. It had a cabinet door that wasn't on square, and so it couldn't close all the way. The ceiling panel had a defect in it, and I think that's kind of it from a fit and finish standpoint. The Delta had the backsplash issue, a little trim damage caused by me trying to pull a sticker off. So I could have left the sticker on, but who wants all those stickers? Especially when they just say something like tall slide room. And then the decals along the outside of the trailer, like for the dump tanks and everything being wrinkled up, like they're just not good stickers. So I would say, these are a little comparable in some ways, but when you start throwing things in like doors not closing correctly, the advantage really goes to Delta at this point as far as fit and finish. From an electrical standpoint, really the only electrical issue we've had is with the Imagine. And as I mentioned, you can't really throw that in the same category as a piece of satellite coax being severed and not being connected anywhere. So the advantage there would definitely go to the Delta, although I'm very disappointed that that ever happened. So, the real world owner perspective is that the Imagine delivered a really good ownership experience overall once we got out of the warranty period, but it did require significant warranty attention, including, a couple major issues. The Alliance Delta so far feels more dialed in out of the factory with issues that are easier to fix and are less intrusive. They don't really impact your ability to go camping, and a little less concerning long-term with the exception of perhaps the roof. We'll see. So, overall Delta comes out ahead if you do like a punch list comparison on it, but to be, again, truthful with you guys, we've got 8 months left to go, and I will let you know if anything fails, so that, this becomes a, we can go back and revisit all of this if we need to. But, the long and the short is I loved the Imagine trailer. Had a great floor plan. I stayed up on the maintenance. It looked brand new when we got rid of it. There's certain things about it that I miss, but I am really kind of head over heels with this trailer, because as I've mentioned in previous videos, it really combines about, the things we liked that we had across 3 different travel trailers. So, overall, as I said in the previous video, I rate it as an 8 out of 10 as far as our experience so far. But I will come back and let you guys know if I feel differently, believe me. And so I just thought that would be kind of interesting to go through the punch lists and kind of detail what went on. And I will say this, before 2008, I never had punch lists. So it was every trailer I bought after that ended up having a fairly long punch list of things that needed to be addressed. So take that for what it's worth. And until next time, happy camping.